everybody. This is Arkady Frekhtman, a New York City personal injury trial attorney. And this is Last Week Tonight, where we talk about your comments and answer your questions. So I go through the comments in the last week and we discuss them. So let's go to the first question. The first question is from Out of Sight, and it says, "Hi, how are you? I have a question. If there is a car hit by an 18-wheeler with 3 people in the car, the driver and 2 passengers, and the 18-wheeler is at fault, it was cited by a state trooper for changing lanes when it was unsafe to do so, can they each get separate lawyers?" So yeah, I mean, they definitely can get separate lawyers. So the 18-wheeler is at fault, it was an unsafe lane change, hit this car, and the car has 3 people, a driver and a passenger. So yeah, each person can get separate lawyers. There's no, it's a free country. There's no requirement that all of the people go to the same lawyer. In fact, in some cases, you would want the driver and the passenger to be represented by different lawyers because it could be a potential conflict of interest, right? Because technically the passengers can sue the driver of their car, and they can also sue the tractor trailer. Whereas the driver of the car obviously cannot sue himself, right, or herself. So they only have a case against the tractor trailer. And so in that sense, it's a conflict of interest. One lawyer can't represent both the driver and the passenger unless, everyone signs a waiver of conflict, which some lawyers use, those forms. And then it's important in New York, at least, that all the implications of the conflict has to be fully disclosed to the client, all of the different possibilities. Because, you never know with a jury, right? They might say, well, the driver of the car is 1% at fault, and then the truck is 99. But then you can't get the money for the 1% because if you don't sue the driver, right? So as long as the passengers give up that right. And then the other question this person had was, he said, should their case all settle together or could their case settle separately? The case could definitely settle separately. It doesn't have to settle all together. It may settle all together just because if they're getting like the same medical care, depending on the severity of the injuries. Like if one person, for example, gets the physical therapy for 3 to 4 months, but then ends up needing, let's say, a spinal fusion. So their case may take longer. They might have to go to court. But if all 3 of them just go for like 3 to 4 months of physical therapy, they all finish at the same time. They all have, let's say, soft tissue injuries, like one person has a herniated disc, one person has a bulging disc, one person has a knee injury, and they all say, we're not doing anything more. Then, yeah, then you could settle them all together. But if they're different, then you could settle them differently. And then, yeah, so I think that's pretty much the question that he was asking. Okay. Yeah, it's a good question, actually. But yeah, that's definitely, you could get separate lawyers and they could settle at different times. That's definitely the correct answer. Okay, and what's the next question? Let's see here. The next question was from Dwayne Carter, and he says, "Hello, I was rear-ended by a dump truck at a red light. I had an MRI and it showed a 4mm disc protrusion and had an abnormal EMG and was diagnosed with lumbar radiculopathy. I treated with physical therapy for 6 months, and then I was referred to a pain management doctor when I received 3 epidural injections and an RFA, a radio frequency ablation. But I'm still having pain, and the doctor recommended a future surgery called a percutaneous discectomy. Do I need a lawyer, or are my medical records and bills enough to get a good settlement? I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I don't know what kind of settlement would be fair." Okay, yeah, so I mean, that sounds like an interesting question. I definitely would recommend this individual, speak to a lawyer, a local lawyer. If they need any help, they could always text me, 347-566-9595. I'm happy to recommend someone. I do know a few lawyers in Philadelphia that I can recommend. It always depends on the type of case though. I like to at least do a little chat or maybe a quick phone call so I could really understand the issues in the case. And then, I could maybe find the best lawyer because I might know say 3 or 4 different lawyers in Philadelphia, but maybe only one would be the best one for your case. So I don't mind, if you're really looking for someone, you need help, I don't mind, setting out a little bit of time and doing that consult, because I think it's important for people to get the best lawyer they can get. But to answer this question, yeah, so a dump truck, that's probably going to be at least $1 million policy. He was at a red light, so it sounds like good liability. A percutaneous discectomy is a serious injury. I mean, we had a percutaneous discectomy. We have a lot of them actually, over the years. And I would say the settlements range anywhere from 100,000 on the low end, if it's only like 100 policy, all the way up to over $500,000. We had a verdict for 550,000. So yeah, there could be a serious, that's a back surgery. I mean, it is a minimally invasive back surgery that is performed in an operative center, like an ambulatory operative center, sometimes not in a hospital, but still it is a back surgery. It's with a striker decompressor that spins and goes in, and it suctions out some of the liquid and removes the herniation from the disc. And then he's had the EMG, which confirmed the radiculopathy in the lumbar, meaning that the herniation or the protrusion in the lumbar spine in the lower back is touching on the nerve roots, and it's causing the pain to travel down to the legs. That's the radiculopathy. And he's gotten a lot of treatment, so he's pain management. Oh, plus the 3 epidurals. I mean, that's worth something too. And the radio frequency ablation. Actually, this could be a big case. This could be even worth more than $500,000, I mean, potentially. So yeah, definitely text me. I'd be happy to speak with you and get you a recommendation. I know a few really good lawyers in Philadelphia that go to trial, that get good results. So it just depends also, just generally for everyone, it depends, because, some lawyers are good at certain types of cases. Like a car accident case, a lot of lawyers can handle, but some lawyers are like specialists, for example, only in burn injury. Like I know one lawyer in Philadelphia who's really good with like burn injury, fires. So, so other lawyers might be good for trucking, right? They might be a truck and a tractor trailer specialist, those kind of cases. So it's important to let me know what type of case, maybe do a little bit of a consult, and I can find the right person for you. Okay, let's go to the next question. Going through a process with a personal injury lawyer now, at-fault party turned left in front of us going through a green light, have permanent scarring on the arm from an airbag deployment, leaving a logo of the vehicle emblem on the arm. At-fault insurance is $250,000, and it's been a little over 2 months since the demand letters were sent out. At-fault insurance continues lowballing, $11,000 offer to my personal injury attorney. How long do I let this continue before looking for new representation, or is this normal? Yeah, so I mean, this sounds like, it sounds like a good case. It sounds like you have this other party that's at fault, turned left in front of you. You had the green light, so it's completely, you have the right of way. Permanent scarring could be worth a lot. The fact that the airbag deployed and it left a mark of the car, I mean, if it's permanent, that's just horrific. So yeah, you have $250,000, you have $250,000. I don't know why they're valuing it at only, $11,000. That's really, really low. The only reason may be that, a lot of these insurance companies, if you don't file a lawsuit, right, if the attorney just sent a demand letter, they might think, okay, well, he just sent me a demand letter, who cares? Let's just give him something. Maybe he'll go away for 11, maybe he'll go away for 20, and they just keep lowballing to pay out as little as possible. But if they see someone else who files a lawsuit and who they know, because remember, the insurance companies have a book, right? And they have records on all the different lawyers. So if your lawyer is somebody who goes to trial and gets a verdict of like 7 figures against them, that they know that because they're a billion-dollar industry. They have tabs, they keep statistics on everybody. Then they'll treat it differently. Then they might offer you much more. They might just say, you know what? We'll just tender, we'll give you the entire $250 because we don't want to mess with you, because what's going to happen, you're going to file a lawsuit against us. You could potentially open up the policy and get more than $250, right, under bad faith law. Plus, we're going to have to pay a lawyer to defend the lawsuit. So now we're going to pay $250, maybe more than $250. Plus, we're going to pay a lawyer, and who knows what the lawyer is going to bill us for like 2-3 years of litigation. That could be another $100,000. So now we're going to pay potentially way, way more. So it just depends. I don't know who the lawyer is. I don't know what city this is, but feel free to text me, and I'd be happy to set up a consult, speak with you about it if you need help. Absolutely, I could recommend somebody. Whatever you need, whatever help you need. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question is, Okay, a trip and fall third-party case. It was a meniscus and ACL surgery with a foot drop and wearing an AFO, and I had 10 epidural shots on my spine. Any idea what it's worth? It's a construction company with millions in insurance. So yeah, oh, this is an individual. Actually, we're going to do a consult. He actually scheduled a consult, so we're going to do a call. We're going to talk about it. But I mean, from this question, I think, I haven't done the call yet. I think we're scheduled to do the call tomorrow. So I don't know all the details, just what we've read, just this question, so it's a little bit open. But I would say it should be worth multiple millions. I mean, a foot drop is a really serious injury. An ACL surgery by itself could be $500,000 or more. Meniscus surgery could be like 150, 250. So just that, 500 plus 250 could be like 750 right there. But then 10 epidural shots, and no, that's a serious case. I'd have to also look into the liability as to what happened and where it happened, because with construction, if it's in New York, it's like strict liability. So they're great cases. They're like the best cases. But if it's a construction accident somewhere else, perhaps it's a little bit different. You have to prove that the construction company was negligent, and it might be a little bit harder. But I still think that this is a good case, and this person should have a multi-million-dollar result. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question is from a Mr. Katak, and he asks, I got hit by an ambulance who didn't have their emergency lights on. No patient in the ambulance. My MRI shows 2 herniated discs, and my knee has a tear. I had 1 year of physiotherapy and still continued with pain management with 2 epidural steroid injections. How much is my case worth? If you can answer my question in your next videos. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, let's see. So, I mean, definitely sounds like a pretty good case. He got hit by the ambulance, no lights and sirens. Now the issue there, if you do have lights and sirens on, then you have to yield to the ambulance, right? And if you don't, it's mostly your fault. To establish liability on an ambulance with lights and sirens, you would have to prove that the ambulance was like reckless, right? That they were not just negligent, not just a failure to use reasonable care, but that they were reckless, that they had like a wanton disregard and were just doing really, really dangerous things. Like they knew it was going to be a danger, they just didn't care, and they still endangered the public. So that's much harder to prove. Although it could be proven, but it's much harder to prove. But here it sounds like, his liability is pretty good, and 2 herniated discs and a knee tear with 1 year of therapy, pain management, 2 epidural shots. I mean, pain management just with epidural shots can be worth like $100,000, $150,000. The knee injury with a tear, I'm assuming like a tear with no surgery, could still be worth also maybe like $50,000. So it could be a case of 200. It could be a little bit more than that. It just depends. It doesn't say like where this happened. If this was New York City, then, definitely I could help, or I could help you, find someone if you need someone, if you just need a consult about potential value. I don't really like to, talk about value on cases that I don't handle or I don't know very well, because it's kind of like a real like shot in the dark guess. It's always better to review the case yourself and in depth, because like then all of the different, there's so many possible defenses and there's so many possible issues, right? It's kind of like saying who's going to win the chess match. Well, if I'm not watching the match, how can I know? It's kind of hard. But I would say generally, yeah, epidural injections, pain management, knee tear. Yeah, I'd say definitely at least a few $100,000. And if, I would like, if the person wants to do a consult, also text me. I'm happy to just do a free consult, discuss it a little bit. And I like discussing cases with people because it also helps me, understand things a little bit better, understand like people a little bit better, what people want, what people need, and then helps me make better videos. So I don't mind doing it. So yeah, just feel free to text me, the 347-566-9595. Okay. Here is a question from a Matthew Gilliard, and he says, I have a lawsuit filed in South Carolina Department of Corrections for failure to protect. I was stabbed by gang members in prison. I keep getting advice that South Carolina has a cap of $300,000 on occurrence. I feel my injuries are worth $1 million. Can I get around the cap to receive civil justice? Well, with a cap, unfortunately, the only way to get around the cap is to change the law, because if that's the state law that somebody could only recover $300,000 and they can't get more, but what happens is if you go to court and you get more and the jury says, okay, we think it's worth $1 million, they'll just lower it to 300, and the insurance company or the state, you're suing the corrections department, they're just going to pay the 300, unfortunately. So I would definitely consult with either a local lawyer or with your lawyer if you already have the lawsuit filed. But unfortunately, it's really hard to get around the cap. There was also a cap in California of $250,000 for medical malpractice, and I believe it was in effect for like almost 50 years from the 1970s. And then one lawyer actually petitioned, and he did a whole drive, and he spent a lot of his own money, like millions and millions out of his own money, just to change it. And he recently changed that law. So that's what you have to do. You have to just change the law by lobbying, by speaking with the congressman, the legislature. I think he had something. I know he met with the governor. It's a long process. It's hard. It's an uphill battle, but it can be done. But yeah, if that's the law, you can't really get around it in any other way. Okay. What is the next question? Okay. Well, here's a question from Ray E. He says, I thought you said mild TBI could be worth $1 million. I have post-concussive syndrome. Yes, I mean, mild TBI, first of all, like the word mild, I don't like the word mild. There's no such thing as a mild TBI, right? It's just different classifications. It's a little bit antiquated. It's the way people used to talk like a long time ago. But it's really brain damage. If you have traumatic brain injury, it's brain damage. And it gets classified. I mean, it could be known as mild, but it's not really mild. You still have brain damage. Your brain is damaged. That's pretty serious. It's a life-changing forever injury. And it's your brain, right? It's everything. It's emotion. It's your interaction with people. It's your sleep. It's your executive function. It's everything, right? It's your brain. It's your central governor of a human being, and it's damaged. So it can never be mild. And so, but there are classifications. There's moderate, and then there's severe brain injury. But it could definitely be worth $1 million, or well more than $1 million. Post-concussive syndrome is pretty serious. I mean, we see it sometimes with some of the NFL players. There's a lawsuit for the CTE, the encephalopathy, and there was recently that player, I believe the quarterback for the Dolphins, where he was left in after a concussion, and then they said, look, he's got another brain injury, and that's exactly what they're not supposed to do. So it could be very, very serious. And then he also asks, do you have to have a certain type of job, like be a teacher or a cop, to have a professional career? Because I was only working at a regular job, wasn't making that much. No, it doesn't really, oh yeah, he asks, does it depend on my profession? No, I would say no, it doesn't depend on your profession. I mean, the only thing that depends on your profession is if you're trying to get economic damages, right? You're entitled to economic damages. Now that means lost salary, lost wages. Now, of course, if you're like a stockbroker, an investment banker, an entrepreneur, and you're making like $1 million a year, you lost $1 million by not being able to work for a year, you get $1 million back. Now, if you're making $20,000 a year doing whatever, you're a janitor, well, obviously you're only entitled to $20,000. So in that sense, it matters, but everyone is entitled to pain and suffering, known as general damages, and that is the loss of enjoyment of life. That is past pain and suffering, future pain and suffering, depending on your age, for the rest of your life. That could be tremendous. That could be a huge monetary amount, especially with a brain injury. Now, what I like to do to prove a brain injury is I like to get a neurologist to treat and diagnose. I like to do some kind of imaging. It depends on the symptoms and the specifics of what the neurologist and what the doctors think should be done. There are diffuse tensor imaging, there's 3T MRIs, there's PET scans, there's arterial spin labeling. There's a lot of different things that can be done. And there are a lot of different injuries, right? There are vestibular injuries with balance, there are vision injuries, there are more like injuries with memory. There's a lot of different types of brain injuries. So yeah, definitely I would do a workup with a neurologist, with a neuroradiologist, which is the imaging, right? The studies. And then the third part would be possibly using a neuropsychologist. So all three of those. But it has to be a workup. I believe this person might have called me or might have spoken to me like a year or two ago. I don't know if it's the same person, but it may be a little, I don't know if he's been doing that. I don't want to say it's too late, but definitely I would start ASAP. I would get a workup, and I would, I could help if you wanted to text me. I could help find a doctor or an attorney if they need an attorney. But from what I remember, for whatever reason, This particular individual was like, regurgitating the insurance company mantra, like it's not worth anything. Somebody told me it's only worth 10,000. It's not. I mean, it could definitely be worth much, much more, but you have to have, that kind of like growth mindset, open mind to that possibility. If you don't think it could be worth more and you're not going to get the medical care, well, then it won't be worth more. You have to be open to that possibility. You have to be willing to hire a lawyer in your city that specializes in traumatic brain injury. And I'm actually a member of the traumatic brain injury group from the American Association of Justice. So we have a lot of great traumatic brain injury lawyers there. I'm a member of a few other groups. I know a lot of the top traumatic brain injury lawyers all over the country. So yeah, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help you. Okay. And the next question is, hi, what is a private mediation in a personal injury case? Is there a difference between a mediation in court? So yeah, I would say there's a difference. And basically in court, they have these court-ordered mediations where you show up in court, you do the mediation, you have a judge, in court that mediates it. Usually they're quick. Usually they're like, half an hour in the courthouse. In state court, in federal court, sometimes what they'll do is they'll assign, or you can choose, and both sides have to agree on a neutral or a mediator, the judge, and then you can have a private, kind of like a private mediation, but it's sponsored by the court. They do that in federal court sometimes, and that's sometimes helpful. But I would say generally, if you can agree to use a private mediation, it's a little bit better in a personal injury case, because a private mediation company like JAMS, NAM, AAA, there's a few different companies, but what they usually do is, both sides agree on the judge, and there are certain judges that are known to be good for the defendants, for the insurance companies. Other judges are more like open to both sides. Some judges are known to be a little bit more like plaintiff friendly. So you'd have to pick the right judge, and you could do that by doing your due diligence, depending on the location. And then, the other thing is, in a private mediation, you're paying the judge, right? Sometimes they charge like $600 an hour. So an entire mediation could last like a few hours. You could get a bill for like $2,000 or $3,000, and that's just you as the plaintiff's attorney. But then the defendant is also paying that much, right? So then that kind of makes everyone take it more seriously and say, look, since I'm paying this much money, I have this judge, I'm committed to the process. And from my experience, like these private mediations, the cases tend to settle. The judges tend to work harder. They tend to settle more, especially than the state court mediations. At least, in New York State. New York, we don't even do that many state court mediations. We mostly just do like settlement conferences, which sometimes are just like, what's your offer? What's your demand? Too far apart? Okay, come back in 6 months, and that's it. So yeah, I definitely think that. Private mediations, pragmatically, I think they're better. Okay, the next question, it's from, okay, I think this is just, here's the question. Okay, it was in the reply. He says, I appreciate the opportunity to ask your opinion. You are incredible and so relatable. Oh, thank you so much. And he says, I was hit by a company vehicle in Texas and my car was totaled. According to the eyewitness, the driver may have been texting. Phone records will be subpoenaed. I had 6 months of PT, 6 steroid injections, 8 MRIs, and PTSD. I will have the following surgery: level 2 cervical fusion, level 2 discectomy, rotator cuff surgery next week, and an SCS implant. I think that's a spinal cord stimulator implant. That's pretty serious. Company has a $1 million policy, and we will find out if there's any umbrella. What are your thoughts? Well, I definitely think that, it's definitely worth, I think it's worth like the entire $1 million. I'm not familiar with values in Texas that much, depending on where in Texas, but I do know a lot of attorneys, so I'm happy to give you a personal consult, maybe get you a second opinion if you need one from a local attorney. But from what you said, I mean, look, it's not your fault. You got hit by this company car. So hopefully there is this umbrella. I would really check that out. Make sure your lawyer really checks that out, because $1 million may not be enough if you have a fusion and you have rotator cuff surgery and a stimulator. That could be, in New York, that could be, there was a case recently, $9 million for that. So almost 10 million, and it was, I think, even less than that. I think that was just the Stimulator and the fusion without the rotator cuff. So that could be a big, big case. Okay. Can you do an extensive video just like this, but on spinal fusion disc replacement verdicts? Next. Oh, and I think he's referring to the video I did, How Much is My Brain Injury TBI Lawsuit Worth? Recent New York cases, where we examined a bunch of New York cases about brain injuries. Yeah, I'm happy to do one about spinal cord injuries and about fusions, disc replacements. Yeah, absolutely. I think I've done a few about that, but maybe looking at some of the recent cases, what I could do is, there's so many cases, right? Because that's a very common injury. A lot of people have herniated discs, and then some of those people where the pain is so bad and it doesn't go away, they end up having a full-blown spinal fusion. So there are a lot of cases. A lot of them will settle. But in terms of the verdicts, like if I took New York and I looked in the last 6 months or the last year in the jury verdict reporter, maybe I could take some notes, make a little outline and do a video about that. I do have something known as the damages, the annual update from the New York State Academy of Trial Lawyers. That was a precedents and statutes for personal injury litigators. And this is for 2021 and 2022 update. And they only had like one case for whatever reason about spinal injuries or about back injuries, but it was actually a case where there was a fusion. It was a labor law construction case, and the plaintiff did really well. The plaintiff got, I believe it was 2 million past, 15 million future for 33 years, and 1.8 in lost wages. But the appellate court cut it down, and so the total amount was only 3.25 million. From the appellate court. It was a second department. They cut down the verdict. They said that's way too high. But, you know, that's just one case. But I'll try to do one. That's a good question. So I'll work on that. I'll make a little note for myself. And thank you for that. That's a really good topic. Okay, the next question or comment. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Anonymous. Yeah, that's a great quote. Yeah, we try to, give away a lot. We try to do like free consults if we can, give away knowledge by answering your questions. And, I agree with that. I think, it is important to help other people as much as you can, to be grateful for others and to help as much as possible. Absolutely. Okay, let's go to the next question. Is there more money if a semi-truck blew the stop sign and smashed head-on into a car? Happened in Illinois. He's 100% at fault. Said he didn't see me. I mean, yeah, it could be more money. Usually, what they do in New York is they try to bifurcate, right? So they try to keep liability separate from damages, because liability is more like the question who is at fault, and then damages is the question with how much to allow for. And they like to keep it separate because they don't want, like, for example, if you have really serious injuries like a fusion or like a paralysis, they don't want the jury to be like sympathetic for you and like, oh, poor guy, he's paralyzed. So you know what? Let's just find the truck at fault. And vice versa, right? They don't want to say like, oh, he's not that hurt, but hey, this truck ran a stop sign. So let's punish him. Let's give him $20 million just because you ran that stop sign. It's completely your fault. Your company knew, didn't train you. The company's at fault. This driver had a bad record. He was using drugs before. He was a criminal. How could they do this? Let's give the guy 20 million, even though he just has like, a broken pinky nail. So you see what I'm saying? You can't do that, one or the other. You can't have liability affect damages and you can't have damages affect liability. You're supposed to keep it separate under the law. That's the legal way of thinking. But in reality, does it happen? I mean, sure, jurors probably, and even if when they bifurcate, what happens in reality is that it's usually the same jury. So whatever jury is deciding damages just finished the liability trial. So if they heard the guy blew the stop sign and they're mad at him and now you're presenting your damages to them, they might give you a lot more. So in reality, I think yes, definitely. But in the legal way of thinking, no, you're not supposed to. Unless the case is unified. But even if it's unified and you're trying everything at the same time, you're still not supposed to make liability decisions based on the injury and injury decisions based on liability. They're supposed to be kept separate. The only time that you're really allowed to think about their conduct in terms of money is when there's the availability of punitive damages, because those are the damages that are meant to punish someone for their conduct. So for example, if a trucking company doesn't even care, they know the guy's like a a drug addict or the guy's a felon and they don't do any kind of background check. They just hire him and they just say, just go drive because we have this load. We have to have it in California by Wednesday. We don't care, that you're violating the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act. You're driving more hours than is legally allowed. We don't care. Just go ahead and get our load there. We just care about our profits. Well, then if it's so egregious and there's so, wanton disregard of the public safety and they're going to hurt people like that, then that could be a punitive damages. But that's a separate element of damages. So you would have liability, you would have damages in your case, and then you would have punitive damages. You would have all three. Okay, and the final question is from Mr. Miliz, and he says, can you do a video on third-party Amazon drivers hit and runs with back surgery? Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's also a good topic. There's a lot of Amazon cars out there, a lot of those delivery cars. If it's a hit and run, meaning the Amazon car hit someone, either another car or a pedestrian, and then they just left the scene. Now, it would be good if somebody got the license plate, because then you can do a search and you can find out the insurance policy. The fact that it's Amazon is great, right? Because Amazon's going to have many layers of coverage, umbrella, excess, all that stuff. It's going to be probably like, hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. I don't think there's a cap. Plus you have Amazon, so it's a billion-dollar company. So that's great. Back surgery, very, very serious. If you watched any of our videos, usually it's $1 million or more for the most part, depending on the type of surgery, depending where it happened. But yeah, I could do a general video maybe about Amazon accidents. I could do a little research. That's a good topic, also a good topic. So thank you for suggesting that. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you so much. I really enjoy doing these. Maybe the next time we'll do a live and people can jump on and ask some questions and I could choose some of the questions and answer them live. If you have any other issues, feel free to text me. If you just want a consultation, I'm happy to do a consultation. Just let me know like your name, the city, the date of the incident, a little bit of a factual information, like what happened, just like 1 or 2 sentences, and then a little bit about your injury, just like, I had a fusion or I have a knee tear with surgery, whatever it is, just the whole thing could only be 2 or 3 sentences. It doesn't have to be long though. But just so I have a little bit of information, then I could either text you back, we could schedule a quick consult where we speak, and then, if you need me to help you get a second opinion from a local lawyer, I'm happy to do that. If you just want to chat and get an idea, I'm happy to do that as well. And thank you so much. Okay, have a great day and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.